my name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and this is Chaotic Risk TV. And our guest today is John Merchant. John, you are a singer from, what's your best name again? Sorry.
That's okay, man. Ghosts of Sunset?
Ghost of Sunset, that's it. It was right on the tip of my tongue. Now, you guys put out an EP last year, or a couple of years back, and you just released a new full-length album. I got to tell people, in prepping for an interview, I listened to a good portion of the album, and to me, it's just what I loved about. First of all, the songwriting is very strong. When I think of John Merchant, I think a great songwriter. I mean, I listened to the album, and it's hard to pigeonhole you. I'd say some of it reminds me kind of a Cheap Trick sound. It's a little bit of pop. It's a little bit of hard rock. It's everything in between. Very radio friendly stuff. So let's talk about Ghost of Sunset. First of all, how long has the band been together?
We started out, I think, right around 2019, right before the pandemic. We started. I had an idea. I actually called my partner Todd Long, who you had interviewed, I think you said last year.
Yeah.
And I had an idea for like a concept EP about a hair band, which was, believe it or not, yeah, right. You and I both have a lot of love for that genre, even though we don't maybe look like it anymore.
Yeah.
And so I had this idea to write kind of a fictional story about a hair metal band that moves from their small town, goes out to California. I called Todd, and within, 24 hours, he had our first kind of single, which was called Miles in Between, written. So we released this EP called Headed West on Golden Robot Records. And then we followed it up with a full-length record that was called No Saints in the City.
Okay.
And that wasn't necessarily a concept album, but it did sort of deal with that idea of New York City and some of those stories. And then we were blessed, obviously, to be allowed to make this new record called Breathe. And that's out on Deco Entertainment right now.
Which, let me ask you, how did you get the deal with Deco? They're a great label. They're one of the favorite labels that have, I got to say, popped up in the last couple of years. And not only do they have a great roster of artists, they got a lot of classic rock guys, some of the guys from Blue Oyster Cult, Carmine Appice, just to name a few. And more than that, what I love is they really get behind their artists. They allow the artists to really develop. They don't just like, okay, well, the album didn't sell, we're dropping you. They really get behind the bands and the albums.
Yeah, and we were looking, I should say too, we had a great relationship with Golden Robot. Mark and Golden Robot were very good to us. We were looking maybe to get a little bit more individualized attention, I guess.
There you go.
Golden Robot has a great lineup of bands too. Some of my favorite stuff on there.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, right as we were sort of parting company, they brought one of my favorite bands, Faster Pussycat, on board.
Oh yeah, Faster Pussycat.
And you'll hear that in our music. You'll hear that influence for sure. But Deco really, we let them hear. I think they heard maybe some of the recordings that we were working on for Breathe, and they got it right away. They were really supportive, artist friendly, focused on what we were doing. So we were real lucky, and a couple meetings, I think even one meeting with them, and we were going, these are guys we want to be with.
Yeah, two guys on that label that I've had the privilege to interview a couple times now is Joe and Albert Bouchard from Blue Oyster Cult. I mean, those guys are huge talents in their own right. I tell you, last time I talked to Albert, I couldn't believe, he's telling me that besides drumming and singing, he's running marathons. He's like 76 years old. I'm like, man, those guys keep in shape.
That's how you stay in this game that long. You got to take care of yourself.
A great drummer. I mean, he wrote a lot of those great Blue Oyster Cult songs we all grew up on.
Legendary band.
Yeah. And so, you guys are in good company. Let me ask you, because again, when I listen to this stuff, I think great songwriting right away. And I don't want people to think I'm saying you sound like, Tom Petty of Eagles, because you don't. But what I mean is those artists have great songs, for example, the Beatles. And
well, if you feel like saying we sound like that, man, you can totally say that.
No, but I guess my point I'm making, these are bands and musicians 40, 50 years later, their songs are still being played on the radio. And I think, your ability to write a great little pop tune, you got that sensibility. Where do you feel you got that from?
From those artists you just mentioned.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I grew up, Todd grew up, we, across all genres and different styles of music. I grew up, I'm a Beatles. The Beatles were it for me. They
yeah,
were the band that made me wanna, I mean, I grew up wanting to play. My dad's a musician. I
yeah.
wanted to be a musician. The Beatles were the blueprint for me. They
Sure,
had
sure.
everything I needed,
I mean, yeah,
which led right into,
yeah,
I can draw that line from the Beatles
sure, sure.
to Cheap Trick to Faster Pussycat to, whatever it is. It's that kind of thread of songwriting that I really was attracted to.
Yeah,
Stories and,
like you listen to a band like Kiss, and you might not hear it right away, but a lot of their songs, I mean, they've been doing it for 50 years. They got great songs. Their songs have great hooks. I mean, those guys are great song. I heard Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley talk over years that when they put Kiss together, they wanted to be like a hard rock Beatles,
and they,
I,
they are.
they are. Cheap Trick, I said you guys kind of remind me of because Cheap Trick, um, they're people some say they got a punk influence. They're a little bit hard rock, a little bit of everything. They got a pop element to what they do. Now, if you look like I don't know if you ever heard the original studio version of their song "I Want You to Want Me," it
Mm-hmm.
almost sounds like a swampy country song. But if you listen to what they did to it on live at Budokan, they kicked that song's major ass. It sounds like a totally different song,
Right. Right.
And,
And how many songs can you say,
yeah,
were singles from a live album?
yeah,
The most popular version of a song is from the live album. Cheap Trick, you have, Surrender, you have I Want You to Want
yeah,
Me from
yeah,
Budokan.
yeah,
That's because they could take those pop hooks, and when you
yeah,
heard them live, man,
yeah,
they beefed them up.
yeah.
Same
I
as
mean,
Kiss.
yeah, I mean, again, the live version of that, it sounds like a totally different song, and that's why I think people love it. Now, I'd love to talk about some of the songs on here. I listened to this song. Let's see, "Never Go Back." Well written, really radio friendly. Again, I think that's a song people could really, really enjoy.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that owes as much to to like Beatles and stuff like that, as much as it does Bon Jovi. You'll
sure,
hear a
sure,
Bon
sure.
Jovi feel in there. Um, we try. I mean, the goal is always to filter those influences through what we do. And there are artists who will say stuff like, I can remember interviews where you'd hear some real Beatley band and they'd go, "Oh, we never listened to the Beatles,"
Yeah,
or
right, right.
whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I would way rather have someone hear those
yeah,
influences and know that we're celebrating those things because it's a lineage, man. Kiss, great example.
yeah.
Paul and Gene, they heard the Beatles. Gene and Paul are of an age too. They grew up on original pop music.
Sure. The Who
Um,
and yeah, other things like
right.
that.
And I hear that in Kiss, and I hear that in what we try to do, that songwriting, what appears to be simplistic has, that verse, chorus, a bridge, middle eight, all these things we sort of learned, Kiss learned, and I learned, at the Beatles' feet, really.
Yeah, yeah. And as you can see, I'm a huge Kiss fan, but I think one of the reasons Kiss has lasted for 50 years, people often say they're not great musicians, but you know what? They're great songwriters. I mean, they have a great catalog of music. And the thing I've always loved about Kiss is it's hard to pigeonhole. I'd say they're more of a pop hard rock band than anything, but they got everything from Beth to Lick It Up, Heaven's on Fire. They can be a metal band, they can be a pop band, they can be whatever the hell they want.
How heavy was Revenge, right?
There
I
you
mean,
go.
there's a heavy album. Revenge is a heavy album, and when it was released, I thought it stood with anything that was out at the time.
I mean, yeah,
But yet you do have Beth, yet you
yeah.
do have the pop of Christine 16.
There you go.
You,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So that's what that model, the Kiss model, and I wish my partner Todd were here. You're talking, he is next level Kiss fanatic.
in fact,
Um,
yeah, I'm going to be interviewing him. I was talking with him the other day because he was telling me his all-time favorite Kiss album is Unmasked, and he's like,
yes,
I want to tell you about that. He said that's a great pop album, and it is.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, cool.
yeah, and so, but you guys doing this type of music, I could see somebody being influenced. I could see him being influenced by that, because that
Well,
sounds like a lot of what you guys do. It's got the songs here, they got great hooks, they're catchy.
We strive for that, man, because we grew up like that. And you were just talking about, how, and we were using Kiss as the example, but what seems simplistic, right? These simple pop songs,
Sure.
the complexities, to me, the vocal arrange. I mean, think about how Gene and Paul sing together.
A lot of the stuff like off the first Kiss album, I love the first couple of Kiss albums where they were co-singing lead together, they were writing
Right.
together.
Which is what John and Paul did, right?
Yeah.
And that's again, that's a lineage thing.
And
that's
again, you look at something like that came off of Revenge, like God Gave Rock and Roll to You. They went back to doing that. That's why that was such a popular album. Let's go back to talking about the Beatles, because again, I think they're another great blueprint for if you want to be a great songwriter. People listening to this may be surprised to hear me say that Helter Skelter is not a Motley Crue song. The Beatles, and the thing with that is, what I love about that is Helter Skelter was about as metal as the Beatles ever got, but they did it.
Right. Oh yeah, Revolution.
Yeah.
Helter Skelter. The thing I got from the Beatles is I grew up. My dad was a country musician, western musician. The Beatles could give me that. They could give me a Rocky Raccoon. They could give me stuff like that. They could give me Helter Skelter. They were the gateway into hard rock, heavy rock music.
And again, another great pop band or hard rock band that I think had all those elements is Queen. Great songwriting. I mean, Somebody to Love, a great pop tune. Who doesn't love that? Bohemian Rhapsody. That's almost an orchestra.
Well, Queen, and you're talking my language too, by the way. So, Queen had the cinematic thing too, right? Those big open songs, great orchestration, great vocals.
And Queen, they were doing music videos before anybody was. I mean, back in the 70s when bands would go on like these talk shows or these TV shows, they would have what was called a promo clip. Queen was one of the first bands ever doing that before there was ever an MTV or anything.
Well, and for me being of a generation, the music video generation, I remember when, those early clips, you get stuff like that. What promo clips they were, like you said.
Yeah.
And it was, growing up on that music, I mean, I just feel blessed, man, because I had the Queens and I still could trace back to the roots of rock and roll. Todd will tell you, my partner Todd will tell you, his dad was a huge Elvis fan. His dad was a greaser.
Wow. Yeah.
So and Todd and I played in a rockabilly band together.
Wow.
So there's rockabilly, there's rock and roll, there's country music, there's folk music. You talk about the lyrics in Ghost of Sunset and the songwriting stuff. That's folk stuff. That's where we go, let's have a character do something in this song, or let's have a story unfold. All that stuff. That's the history of rock and roll. We're just trying to do our part to give a little bit back.
Ghost of Sunset is mainly you and your partner Todd. But so let me ask you, like, when you guys start working towards this album, like, are you in a room together writing? Do you usually start with your guitar? You send him tracks, or what? How does that work?
Exactly what you just said. Basically, how Ghost of Sunset works in this modern world is, a riff or something. Todd's good for this. I'll get 13 seconds of a riff. That's a memo, and he'll go, I think I'm onto something. And usually if it's one of these songs that's going to work, I start humming a melody to whatever this idea is. And we just keep building and building and building from there. That's how we work now. We're separated literally by a country. I'm in Michigan. He's in Florida.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
When we started writing Breathe, this record, Todd was in Alaska.
Wow.
So technology has allowed us to do this, which is such a blessing.
I've interviewed bands where the guys live in different countries and they only see each other when they go on tour or whatever. Can you imagine? I mean, I think the world has gotten to a place where you can make a record. You don't even have to be in the same room,
It's really a double-edged sword, I think. I think it's great. It allows people to collaborate in a way we couldn't before. But it's also, you trade something off. And what you trade off is that the energy of being in the room, the camaraderie of, I grew up I'm a Beatle guy. when I was a kid, I thought those guys lived in a house together, like the Monkees. I
Yeah, yeah.
didn't know.
How did you know?
Um,
Yeah.
and I think about the great records that I love. Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones. That was made. They lived in a house in the south of France together.
Yeah.
The band, music from Big Pink. That Big Pink was the house they lived in as a band. That creates a special kind of thing too. Todd and I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we could, I suppose, but we'd probably kill each other. And it's allowed us to keep working and collaborating. And what
Yeah,
more
you
can you
brought up
ask?
the Monkees. That's a great example too, because I mean, I remember as a kid, being I wasn't born until 1971, and the Monkees came a little before me. But I remember, they brought it on MTV back in the day. I'd seen it for the first time, thinking it was a real band, and they were musicians. But come to find out, okay, they were guys in the band were two of them were like just actors, and the other two guys are musicians. And then you had
Right.
other people writing the music. But you know what? That was one example where it was really the whole package, if you know what I mean. They
Yes.
were able
Right.
to pull it off.
Well, you had, the Monkees are the example where you had, like you said, songwriters working for them. You had the best musicians making the music, which was the Wrecking Crew, the studio
Yeah.
musicians, the greatest studio musicians. And you had a Beatle blueprint, right? They were the hijinks, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
the the Monkees. Um, so those things for me created the idea of the rock and roll band. I thought, I mean, and I did in my younger years too. When we were in bands as kids, in our teens and 20s, you've forsaken everything for that band. You don't have time for girlfriends and jobs and get a job. I practice 3 days a week with my band. We hang out the rest of the time. We watch Headbangers Ball the rest,
Yeah.
and that for me is what made it. I liked that feeling of us together, the gang mentality, and I miss it even as as the place I'm in my life now. I do miss that
So, John, let me
together
ask you:
time.
is this what you do full time, or you like a lot of people? You're what you consider a working musician. Do you have a day job and you do this around that, or?
I do. I have a day job. I actually, there have been moments in my life,
Oh,
years in my
sure.
life, where I was a sole musician. That's how I made my living. But now, I have a family. I have
Sure.
a quality of life I want to provide them, and a sense of security
Sure.
that the rock and roll game does not provide.
And you know
So
what why I respect that? I mean, you got to do what you got to do, but at the same time, you must be at a place in life where it feels pretty good to be able to support your family, take care of your family, be able to kind of have this other side of your dream you're living out. Hey, I got a record deal with Deco Entertainment. I'm allowed to put my music out there, and I'm doing it.
well, you know what, man? I'll tell you this. I personally have been making music professionally, which we'll call performing in the public, for 35 years.
Yeah.
And we've done it all. Todd and I toured the country together in our former band. We've sold songs to HP Computers and Ford Motor Company and the Outdoor Channel, and yet I 2 nights ago I was playing a local club here, playing cover tunes, and have worked myself into a place where I get to play songs I like and that mean something to me.
And
So
again,
I'm not out.
that's cool too, because you get to go out and perform and keep your chops up. But a lot of people they don't understand. Oh, you're playing other people's music, but not only is that a great way for people to get their start in the music business, but it allows you, like I said, to get out there and do your thing.
And I've had through these 35 years and even longer, I've had those people debate about the cover band. Oh, you're in a cover band. My favorite band, like I said, was the Beatles. Now they started out as a cover band. Twist and Shout is not their song. You
No, no,
know,
no.
all these bands that I loved, the Rolling Stones. There's Chuck Berry and Muddy
Sure,
Waters
sure.
covers. You know, so I think it's like I don't know. I liken it to painting. Maybe you
Yeah.
start tracing, right, and then you're like, well, I'm going to make my own thing now.
I mean, the
But
Rolling Stones, let's talk about them. They great songwriters as well. I mean, they're a band very much like you, got a great pop sensibility. They can do hard rock. They do disco. They've done everything.
they,
And
yeah,
they're still doing it 60 years later. And Yet at the same time, you got to stop and realize, okay, but Rolling Stones have been doing it for 60 years. Somebody came before them, even.
Right. And that's what if you're like me and you love music the way I do, and I know you do, if I hear the Rolling Stones talking about Muddy Waters all the time, I'm gonna figure out who Muddy Waters is, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm always going to the archaeologist in me is gonna
yeah,
try to uncover where this came from. So luckily for me, I was able to love Hanoi Rocks,
sure.
and I was able to love the faces, and then I was able to, you could find it all, and that's what I like doing to this day. If
Yeah,
someone,
if I
Kiss
hadn't
talking
heard,
about the Beatles,
if I hadn't heard Gene Paul talking about the Beatles, I might not have ever gone and checked the band out. But let's be honest, who hasn't heard the Beatles, on the radio?
well, you know,
Yeah,
and the same can be said for Kiss, right? I know there's the makeup, I know there's the pyro, I know there's all of that. That is not what you're singing when you're going, I want to rock and roll all night and party every day.
oh
That
yeah.
boils it down.
And let's
Um,
be honest. Let's be honest. If they didn't have the songs, if they weren't delivering the goods, if it was really just all about the makeup, they wouldn't have lasted 50 years.
there's
I
no
mean,
way. There's
yeah.
no way. No, and they're undeniable.
I
Those
mean,
are
yeah,
undeniable songs, man. They're in the fabric of the world now. Kiss
yeah.
has woven into the fabric of the world. That's not a rock and roll band. That's an enigma. That's an iconic thing.
And let's be
Um,
honest. As much as I love the original lineup, Gene and Paul have been the driving forces for 50 years. They wrote most of the stuff. They sing most of the stuff, and they've kept it going all these years.
and think about how lean those times got. I mean, you and I both know there have been segments in that Kiss
Sure, sure.
career that over that time you're going to ebb and flow. And there were times we both know Kiss wasn't the most popular band on
Sure,
earth by
sure.
any
Yeah,
stretch.
yeah, yeah.
And Gene and Paul are out there slugging it out. So you got to give props to that.
Sure.
As a fan, and I'm sure you too, Tommy and Eric are both great musicians.
Yeah, yeah.
Kiss has always had that foursome.
I like it all. I'm one of those guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the original foursome for me touches the same place that the Beatles did, right? These
sure.
four guys who start in Queens and build this empire.
Yeah. I will say,
still.
Yeah, we mentioned Queen a little bit ago. Amazing thing to me about Queen is who would have ever thought that Brian and Roger would ever be able to go out without Freddie and play the songs and people would go see it. Now, I think the reason they've been able to is Adam Lambert, he's not Freddie Mercury, he doesn't try to be, but he's as close as they're going to get. But more than that, those Queen songs are a soundtrack to our life. You know what I mean? People love those songs. I mean, again, you look at a song like Another One Bites the Dust. That's almost funk R&B. It's disco. It's all of that. Killer Queen. That's rock and roll vaudeville. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. That's what Adam Lambert gets, and I actually think he's brought a new theatrical element to Queen.
Yeah.
Freddie was always theatrical, and he was Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
But I think Adam respects the material, respects the lineage, just like Tommy does, just like Eric does.
Whereas I think if Adam Lambert had tried to pretend like he was the second coming of Freddie Mercury, it wouldn't work.
Would have never worked, right? And again, it all boils down to songs.
Before Adam Lambert came in, they tried to do it with Paul Rogers, a great legendary artist. For whatever reason, it didn't work.
Right. And I think as Queen fans, we all, and as a fan of Free and Bad Company, I love those artists. I just knew that wasn't the fit,
Yeah.
Paul Rogers is a little dirtier, a little grittier. We need, for Freddie's material, you need a theatrical, performer. And again, it all comes down to songs. And that's even for us. That's the goal, is to write good songs. Would it be cool to have, is cool clothes and great hair is important? It is. Yeah. Look at how cool Queen looked, or Kiss, or Hanoi. All that's the package. But that doesn't do anything on the radio on your way to work in the morning. It's the songs, and it's always going to be the songs.
And this is a new age too we're living in. John, because for example, I look at you right now, and I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. You remind me of your look reminds me of Joey Allen, the guitar player from
From
Warren, who
Warren.
used to have this beautiful long blonde hair. Now he's as bald as you and me, but
Yeah.
but they're able to still go out there. They got Robert Mason doing it now,
Who's
and
Robert Mason's phenomenal.
yeah, yeah,
And we Todd and I both hailed Janie Lane. He was
yeah,
a casualty to this game who didn't
sure.
deserve what he got. He deserved to be recognized for the songwriter he was. But it is. I like to see these guys out play. I like to see them performing at a level, that honors that lineage. And
Even Warren is interesting. I mean, back in the day, you know how many records they sold. They were all over MTV.
right.
By the time they got to their third album, it kind of started being the
And
sinking ship.
Todd Long will tell you
Yeah,
right now that Dog Eat Dog is his favorite Warren album.
yeah, yeah.
He loves Dog Eat Dog.
In
Because
fact,
he likes the songs.
yeah, I heard Janie say that was his favorite album, and I've talked to a couple people, and it seems like Janie Lane had no idea, like just how beloved he was by his fans.
He never got there. What happened, and Todd and I have this conversation all the time. Janie never got to the place that he deserved as a songwriter.
Sure.
And what people will cite, and Janie did too before his death, it was Cherry Pie. Cherry Pie ruined everything for him.
Yeah.
And the fact is, how good of a songwriter was Janie Lane?
Yeah,
Someone at the record label said, "Give me a Love in an Elevator."
Yeah,
and
he
Janie
did.
Lane came back 24 hours later with Cherry Pie.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a songwriter.
And what people got to realize about Janie Lane, they may not realize, is when he first started out as a musician, he was a drummer, very much like Steven Tyler. And then he morphed into the great frontman and songwriter that he was. And that's why those guys in Warren are still able to go out there and play like they do, because he wrote that great catalog of music, very much like what Queen has.
All of these bands, we can laugh at the poofy hair, we can laugh at the white leather outfits, whatever we want to do.
I loved it all,
I worshipped it all,
Yeah.
I worshipped it all. And to me, Janie Lane and Warren and the white suits in the Heaven video are no different than the Beatles at Shea Stadium with their suits, or the Magical Mystery Tour era, or whatever it was. That's the problem for me today is you see, like you said, the Joey Allen look. Yeah, my hair is gone and all of that. But I still, if I'm going to go perform, I'm not going to look like I'm going to mow the lawn.
There you go. Yeah, put on
I
a show, right?
respect the game. I respect the game.
Yeah,
I've been in this game a long time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what it's all about. When grunge was hitting in the early 90s, I was still a fan of all of these hard rock bands.
Me too.
I mean, I couldn't understand why a lot of the fans kind of turned their back on it. Like, okay, well, they're not playing on MTV, so I'm going to throw away all my Bon Jovi and Motley Crue albums.
Right.
And, I've been a fan of it even when it wasn't popular. And it's funny because music from that time, I think, like every 10 years, get a new popular trend of music. But that's the music that people seem to always kind of be a fan of, it never truly went away.
I think we hear people say stuff like timeless a lot.
Yeah.
And again, you just do not. And a lot of my favorite bands now are back out on the road. The Faster Pussycats and LA Guns and Tesla and, Warren.
Tesla's a great band, yeah. In fact,
Tesla's a fantastic band.
In fact, I'm going to be interviewing their new drummer, Steve Brown, who is actually the brother of Mick Brown from Dokken.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah.
So Troy's out of the game completely.
Yeah, he's been out for a while. He's been sitting out, but they're going to make it official.
Okay, good. That'll be good. And there's a band too. Great songs, great work ethic, great musicianship. They deserve everything and more, I think.
Yeah. And what they got so much more. I mean, they're hard rock, they're metal, they're really everything. I mean, but when people think of Tesla, the sad thing is they think of Love Song and Signs.
Right. The same, and there's a whole generation of people who think Kiss is "I Was Made for Loving You."
Yeah. There's much more. Yeah.
And that's okay too. Sure. I will say that great songs are great songs, and Todd and I, as fans of great songs and as musicians ourselves, we're always listening. And I'm probably not where Todd is as far. Todd Long has no prejudice against the song. If Taylor Swift writes a good song, Todd Long will go, I like that Taylor Swift song.
See, that's why Ghost of Sunset is going to be successful. It's all about it's more about the song than anything else.
Well, you know, I'd love for it to be about the hair, but you can tell that's not going to happen.
No. Well, what I mean is, I can tell just by listening that you guys put a lot of thought into the lyrics. You put a lot of thought. In other words, like you're not going to have a flashy guitar solo on a song if it doesn't call for it, you know?
Yeah, but we try to let the song dictate what it needs because it'll tell you.
That's
it always
point.
does.
Yeah,
it always does.
Yeah.
Ace is the great example. One of the iconic guitar players of all time is Ace Frehley, and at no point was he Steve Vai.
No. Yeah.
But
he didn't need to be though.
He didn't need to be, and that's what separates, you know, the pros from the ego and the BS. Is the song will tell you what it needs. Your job is to get out of the way and give it what it needs to be a great song.
Yeah. So John, let me ask you, as far as I know this is kind of a recording project, but any chance you guys, have you talked about doing any shows or?
We always talk about it, and we've had people offer to help us out as far as additional musicians. If the stars align, we would do that, because the sad thing for us is, you know, people go, oh, it's a recording project.
Yeah.
But the fact is, we cut our teeth the last 35 years. We were 4 sets a night, 3 nights a week.
Sure.
40 songs, 50 songs a night. That's where we live and breathe. And right now, I think a lot of bands are proving their salt live because there's so much controversy about live performance.
Have you guys thought about it? I get the feeling from what you just said, you'd much rather get out there and do it live. But have you thought about, since you guys are in different locations, maybe doing like an online event or something?
We've done some. Todd and I've collaborated with other artists on some of these quarantine videos that were out during the pandemic. Yeah. We've talked about meeting in a city like Nashville, where we have friends and where we've worked a lot, and hubbing out of there and hitting some, festivals or something.
Yeah.
But again, there's also, someone's got to get the kids to swim class. And
there you go. That's key. Yeah.
But we'd love to play live, and I hope at some point we do that.
What's been the reaction to the new album so far since it's been out? I mean, are you finding people are not just buying it, but is it being played on, radio stations, internet radio? And
well, we're getting some terrestrial radio play, which is always nice for me because I grew up on it. The radio in the car meant something to me.
Yeah, sure.
So I love that. Lots of internet play, lots of download streams. We're doing pretty well. And all we ever wanted to do was find an audience of people who like this kind of music that we were writing, and connect with them. And see, here we are, talking about Kiss and Queen and with people who love music. I mean, what more can you ask?
And I'd love to see a Ghost of Sunset show, but even if it never was to happen, you know what's interesting is you're still getting a reaction. People are still buying the album, still being played on the radio, and without even doing a live show. And that's pretty incredible, to get that.
We hope it's because of the songs. I mean, the hope is always that it's the songs.
In fact, I can tell people, I would highly recommend they go out and get the album downloaded, buy a physical CD or whatever, because it's not like you just get 1 or 2 great songs. The album is loaded. Probably with great songs. I think probably the hardest problem you and Todd and maybe a record company have is, which song do we release first as a single? Because I really think you could pick any one and people react to it.
That's always going back to even the EP with Golden Robot. That's always an issue. You love them all. Todd and I love them all, of course. So we defer. We always defer to the label. Let them pick those things. They're the business people. They know what they're listening for, and we just hope that that we can keep connecting with people and sharing.
Again, this is just from my ears here, but my point I'm trying to make is there's not a filler song on the whole album. It's all great material.
Man, that means a lot. That really means a lot.
Because again, I may be old school, but the days when I was growing up and you go and buy albums still, all those great classic bands you're talking about, they've made not just like an album had one great song. They were like a classic album,
Well, and that was what we were looking for, right? I mean, guys like us the single on the radio everyone loved, right? Everyone loved whatever the song was, but we were the guys who went, oh no, dude, side 2, track 3 is the one, and they should have released that as a single. That's the jam,
Yeah. And even sometimes the fans get to kind of decide. I mean, Kiss is another great example. I remember when Destroyer came out, they released Detroit Rock City as a single, but then the DJ started flipping it over and playing Beth, and
Yeah,
that became the
right.
big hit. Yeah.
Or and we say stuff like B-sides, and that dates us a little bit, but
Yeah.
there was a lot of magic to be found if you love music the way I do, the way you do, the way the people who seem to be connecting with Ghosts of Sunset, they want to dig deep. They want to hear it all and see what you got in the tank, because that one great song is fantastic, right? We all know the one-hit wonder, which is great. I'd love to have that, but that longevity, the songs, I think the depth is what's important to us.
I mean, I'm willing to bet, John, maybe 10 years from now, people will still be playing this stuff. We'll still be talking about Ghost of Sunset. Let's hope.
I would love that. I would love that, because nothing has meant more to me in my life. I mean, short of my wife and my son, my family, but music, it gave me everything. If Todd and I can create a little bit to give back, you have to remember that this it literally saved my life and gave me purpose. So it's not just, it's only rock and roll, but I like it. But it also gave me so much that I'll never be able to pay it back.
I mean, I'm willing to bet, just listening to these songs, these are, with you and Todd, these songs are pages out of your life.
Well, they are. And and other people's music does the same thing for me. I connect to it like it was written for me. I've never even been to New Jersey, but Born to Run, it makes me feel like I have been, and I appreciate that about music.
And that's the thing, I got to tell you, when I listen to any songs, typically, I start listening to the lyrics, trying to figure out what's the song about, what's this guy trying to tell us. And as a songwriter, you must dig it when a fan comes up to you and tell, John, I listened to this song, and man, this is what I got out. And it may not even be what you wrote the song about, but you tell yourself, you know what? If that's what they got out of it, great.
Hey, if you get anything, I mean, I got so much from songs and music and bands. If someone gets anything, all it is me and Todd trying to give a little bit back to, it gave me identity and purpose and joy. I mean, come on, man. There's nothing like it.
Well, John, as you can hear, I could talk to you all day about music. So I want to invite you back to do it again, because I'm gonna love promoting the hell out of this album. So let's do it again and keep in touch. And I'll let you know when this will go up, probably about 2 weeks from now. Okay, so be looking out for it. I'll let you know. Take care.
Hey, thank you, my friend.
Anytime. Bye-bye.